Welcome to another edition of the Legal Anchor. Today we'll be looking at ship ownership and registration. Once again, we're here in downtown Kingston, the epicenter of maritime law in Jamaica. As you can see, there are ships in the harbour. How do these ships that are here in this harbour make their way around the world? They do so by being able to sail on the high seas. As we did last week, we know that there are different zones. So 200 nautical, once you're over 200 nautical miles, you're now in the high seas. Therefore, for these ships that we're seeing here today to have reached here, most of them had to have gone through the high seas. When you go through the high seas, there is no law. However, would there be no law in the high seas because no country has a direct claim to the high seas? But also what happens is that for a ship to sail in the high seas, they must be registered. If they're not registered, they're a stateless vessel. And if you're a stateless vessel, that means anyone can board you and assert jurisdiction over you. Therefore, you cannot sail, you will be denied entry into ports, and nobody will want to do business with you. So what is this whole registration then? This ship ownership and registration now means that your ship is registered in a particular country. This is akin to the motor car. You can buy a car, and guess what? You can drive the car on your private property. If you live on a nice big farm, you can buy a nice Mercedes, whatever you want to buy, and drive it on the property. But the moment you want to drive that car on the main road, what has to be done? The car has to be registered, the car has to be licensed and insured. So if the car is not licensed and insured, you cannot drive on the public thoroughfare. This is the same for the ship. If the ship is not registered, it cannot sail the high seas. It can only sail around the territorial waters. Just like how you see a lot of the fishermen boats, you may see some even go by soon, are sailing around. Most of them cannot go into the high seas because they're not registered. And to be registered, you have to go, and it's a formal process. We're here downtown Kingston. We're just right here across the road in this building right here. There is the Jamaica Ship Registry, and at the Jamaica Ship Registry they do just that. They are registering the ships. They are ensuring that ship ownership and registration is done. So in this building, what you will find are the books of register. A register book which I have seen myself, and the book is akin to what you call the station book in a police station. Is this book that is the size of the desk. You wonder how the book even get through the door. But anyways, this huge book has written the names of all the vessels registered in Jamaica, who its owners and everything about it. So if anything should happen, they can make contact with the owner and find and inform them. So if there are laws that Jamaica has that you must adhere to, the ship owners will be informed. Equally, if the ship is out in the high seas and does things that are not in keeping, what can also happen is that these very same ships can be seized. What they can do is they can call on the Jamaica Ship Registry, and when they call the Jamaica Ship Registry, they'll be notified of whatever breach that ship may be doing. And when they notify of that breach, the Jamaica Ship Registry would then contact the owner and inform them. So if a ship should be, for example, in the high seas, polluting the high seas, and they're observed by another ship, that ship owner or the person on board that ship can make a call to the Jamaican Ship Registry informing them there's a ship out here in the high seas flying the Jamaican flag. So that is how they know, because it is flying the Jamaican flag. And all they'll call and they'll say, we see this ship and it is doing something that is in breach, because they themselves cannot go in there. The high seas is a legal vacuum. Nobody owns the high seas. However, to be on there, you must be registered, just like the main road. It have to be honest, you have to be registered same way. For your ship to set sail on the high sea, you have to be registered. So if you're doing something wrong on the road, the same way the police stop you is the same way if you're doing something wrong on the high seas. Another ship can stop and say, no, that is not right. Another ship can say it. The Coast Guard for other countries are known to frequently patrol the high seas. All of this happens. So we now understand that ship ownership and registration has to deal with ensuring that this ship is registered. It must be registered to sail the high sea. As it relates to ship ownership, when you purchase a ship, the ownership is how you choose to purchase it. Do you choose to purchase it, one or a group of you? All of that is how you own the ship. You can own it in shares, equal shares, unequal shares, however you want to own it. But the important thing is that the ship is registered. If you are going to use the ship to be doing especially commercial work, it must be registered where? Right here at the Jamaica Ship Registry.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Students Digest. I am your host, Tyrese, and today we have a very special guest in studio, Mr. Jermaine Reed, attorney at law and lecturer.
Thank you.
Good afternoon,
Tyrese.
Mr. Reed. How are you?
I'm very good.
That's
a pleasure to be here in studio with you today.
That's very good to hear. I'm happy to have you here.
Yes.
So today we will be discussing quite a number of topics.
Sure.
We are looking for some professional insight, right?
Yes.
So what we want to discuss today is essentially vessels registration, ownership, and documentation.
Yes, maritime law.
Maritime
Yes.
law, exactly.
Okay.
So I hope you guys are listening. Stay tuned for the rest of this podcast. All right. So Mr. Reed, the first question I want to ask you today, sir, is
Sure.
how is it possible for a vessel to possess nationality without being necessarily registered to one particular nation?
Okay, so let's get started. Let's get back to basics first. That question falls under the topic of ship ownership and registration. So you firstly need to understand ship ownership. How can a ship be owned? You can own it. You or multiple persons can own a ship. Now, when you own the ship, this is akin to just like owning a motor car. You own the ship, but guess what? You can own it in different portions. More than one of you can own it. Ships, because of how expensive they are, tend to be bought by a group of persons. Because you're looking at an item that is worth upwards of a few $100,000 US. So this tends to be undertaken by a group of persons. So now these group of persons come together and decide that they want to purchase this ship. Now, we're on to ship ownership and registration. For your viewers, can you repeat the question one more time since I did a little brief intro? So we'll just get back.
Alright, definitely. The question again is, how does a vessel possess the nationality of a state even though they're not registered to that state?
Okay, good. So now the persons who own the ship decide that they'd like to register it. The group of persons can register it. And of course, the ship would now be either where they have registered it, the country they've registered it in, or under their own citizenship. However, how can a ship, you're asking, how can a ship now have all of these attributes and not be registered? Because what can happen is, where is the ship built? We have to look at things like that. If the ship is built in Jamaica, what do you think it's going to be?
It has to be a Jamaican
You
ship.
consider it to be a Jamaican ship. So on the surface of it, it may seem to you like it's a Jamaican ship. So people say, okay, it is deemed to be a Jamaican ship. However, suppose the person who commissioned the building of the ship is German.
So then that would make the ship both Jamaican and German.
It could be, it cannot be both. So it will end up being one of them. So it's either the person may register it in their country, they may choose to register it in their country of birth, which is Germany.
Okay.
Or they may register it in the country where it was built, Jamaica. Or they may find another country, such as Panama, which has a very large ship registry. And they may say, no, I want my ship to be a Panamanian ship.
Okay.
So that is how a ship gets its that is how the ship now gets its nationality. So you understand a ship can have it without now even somebody going through the formal process of registering the ship and all of that. Somebody can still own this ship. Or somebody can claim that this ship has a nationality and nobody really says. Because what? It could have been built here. It could have been owned by a Jamaican. So because the ship is owned by a Jamaican, the registration could have lapsed, but everybody knows it to be a Jamaican ship. So it's still Jamaican. So there are various ways, but I want one thing I want you to understand. The strongest, and I want all of you to understand this, the strongest way to show is documentary proof. That is really what is important. So in this course, what I want anybody who is doing this course to remember, documentary proof, what is in writing is what is really going to stand. So I hope I answered that question.
Definitely. So you just touched on documentary proof, right?
Yes.
And that made segue for my next question, which is the purpose of documentation. Whenever you're registering a ship, why do we need to have documentation? What is the purpose of documenting the registration of a ship?
The purpose of documenting it now is so you can know who owns it and everything, so they can get in contact if something should happen. So you have to look at the ship once again. The ship plies the seas, and a ship goes to various ports. Now, with the ship going to various ports, anything can happen. So they need to be able to make contact with the owners. So therefore, what you will see is that when a ship is purchased and they have to go through this formal process, why they have to register it? Example, as I had done on my video, where I spoke about the Maritime Authority of Jamaica and the Ship Registry of Jamaica, and I showed you the building. In the ship registry, all of that is where all of that information is held. So when somebody purchases a ship, the information, now when they decide to register it, is held at the Jamaica Ship Registry. The Jamaica Ship Registry has a book, and I'm not lying, the book is probably about the size of this table. Half the size, and I'm not lying, about half the size of this desk in here is the book. And the book, when you open it, it has the name of the persons of a ship that is registered here in Jamaica. It has all the ships registered in Jamaica. It has the name. It has, if there's a mortgage taken out, a loan against a ship, it is recorded there, everything. Also, what is important you need to remember now in maritime law is that they're looking also if the ship is upholding various international standards. Because remember, there's the IMDG code, there's the SOLAS, everything. And all of that is recorded at the Jamaica Ship Registry. And the Jamaica Ship Registry will be the one to ensure that the ship is compliant. Because remember, the ship is registered. Like how your car is registered, remember your car has to be registered to be on the road. When your car is registered to be on the road, it has to be roadworthy. So it's the same way, the ship has to be seaworthy. So the Jamaica Ship Registry ensures that your ship is seaworthy, meeting the minimum requirements laid down by Jamaica and also the minimum requirements laid down by the international community. That is the
International Maritime Organization.
Yes, the International Maritime Organization is the umbrella body that oversees all of this.
Okay.
So they will be the ones to be bringing out the various codes and all of these regulations that ship owners are bound to follow. And if you don't follow it, you're denied entry into other ports, which means your ship not going to make money.
So in essence, what you're saying then is that the purpose of documentation is to show who owns the ship then.
Yes.
Okay.
Shows who owns the ship, and it shows if they're compliant. And if they're not compliant, you can get in contact with them. Because we also know that the ship has to sail on the high seas. On the high seas, there's a legal vacuum, meaning nobody owns the high seas. But in order for you to sail the high seas, your ship must be registered.
Okay.
And if your ship is not registered, you're on the high seas illegally. And at that point, you're what they call a stateless vessel. And if you're stateless, it means anybody can board you and assert jurisdiction over you. When you're not stateless is when you're registered. So example, you're registered with the Jamaica, you buy a ship, let's say you and a group of friends buy the ship, you register it here in Jamaica. That ship is now a Jamaican flag ship. It has the Jamaican flag and it can sail into the high seas. Now, let's say your ship is in the high seas and they see it conducting some activity that is not in keeping with what the international community deems as to be proper sailing of board, sailing. What they can do is that other country that sees their ship in beach can radio to land and inform. We see a Jamaican flagship. The flagship, let's say named the Tyrese Williams, the MV Tyrese Williams. We see it sailing, it has a Jamaican flag and it seems to have the Jamaican registration. We're asking that you please inform the ship is either, let's say it's letting off too much fumes, because there's now the fume cap that has come out and says how much fumes your ship should be emitting, or you're doing pollution. If it's seen to be doing something in the international waters, which is the high seas, doing something out in the high seas, they can make contact with the Jamaica Ship Registry and say, we see the ship and the ship is in breach. Okay. Therefore, they can make a call to Mr. Williams, will be the owner, to get the ship regularized and back in line. So I hope you're understanding the importance of the registration of the ship. It makes you able now to ply the seas and also to be able to be traced, easily traceable. Remember, the ship goes from port to port.
Okay, so I like how you brought out the first response. You responded to the question that I asked initially, which was the purpose of documentation,
Yes.
by saying, hey, in a nutshell, that it is what serves as the document of title. It shows who owns the ship.
Excellent. I like
Right.
that you use that word, document of title, because it's showing proof of ownership. Continue. Sorry, I hope I'm not hijacking your show. Sorry, it's the lawyer in me. Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yes.
So, all right. The other question I want to ask you then, right? You made segue again to you're very. He's very knowledgeable about the topic, as you can see.
I try.
So the other question I want to ask you then is, what is the contrast between documentation and registration? Because I heard where in your prior explanation you kept mentioning the term registration as it relates to documentation, having knowledge of where the ship is at whatever port and etc. etc. So now I want you to respond to the question, what is the contrast between documentation and registration?
Okay, very good question. Documentation and registration. Registration is the process
Okay.
of how you go about doing this thing. So you go and you get your ship registered and everything. That is all of that. Now, documentation is the right to fly the flag. You have all of the flag, you have all of that now.
Okay.
So that is the actual documents, the papers, everything. That is your documentation. So that gives you the proof that you need. So if, let's go back to the example I gave a little earlier. If it should be seen that your ship is in breach in the international waters, let's say you're in breach, and they want to say, we want to come on there and we want to board you. Let's say another ship, international ship, sees you out there and says, no, we think you're in breach, that ship is in breach. You, or the ship captain, I should say, because you'll be the owner and you'll be somewhere on land, as the captain of the ship would say, no, you cannot board our vessel, just like that. We are a Jamaican flag vessel. Here is our documentation. That is a paper.
Oh,
and they would
okay.
show the documents. And they'd say, this is our documentation that proof that we are Jamaican. If you have a problem, please make contact with the Jamaican Ship Registry, and they will make any form of contact with us, and we will talk from there. But you cannot board our vessel and come on and assert jurisdiction over us.
Because you have documentation.
Documentation to show.
So that gives you the right to do whatever your ship needs to do in a particular port.
Yes.
Okay.
And also on the high seas.
And also on the high seas.
Because that is the most important thing, What I want you to remember is that this is akin. Let's use a motor car as the most common example to show what I'm trying to get across, that I want all of your viewers to understand. The ship and the motor car. Just like how you can buy a car. So you go out tomorrow and you decide, Tyrese, what's the car you always want to buy the car? You don't think you have the money probably to license and insure. Okay, so a Porsche. Excellent. So Tyrese wants to buy a Porsche. But guess what? Tyrese doesn't have the money to license and insure and all of this, the Porsche. So you go and you look at the Porsche and you say, well, I can get the money to buy it. But after that, and Tyrese lives on a farm, let's say. So Tyrese have money, him live on a farm already, but him money not so ton up that he can get the Porsche. But him have to have a Porsche because the friend them next door, and the hype thing, and the neighbor them and everybody, and just want to hype on your friend them and Braffin King.
Yeah.
So, you buy this Porsche, you drive it around your farm. So you buy the Porsche and you have the Porsche delivered to you on your farm. Out on your farm, let's say out in Bog Walk. You have a big, nice farm out there. You drive the Porsche. When you buy this Porsche, what can you do? Can you drive? What can you do with this Porsche?
You can drive it.
Where you can, the excellent answer, you can drive it. Which road you can drive on?
Any road that is
What would you need to drive it on the road?
license and registration.
You just say you can't afford the license and insurance and registration.
So, but you can't drive the car then.
So what would you do with it?
Where be parked?
Where could you drive it though?
In a yard.
You can drive it on your farm.
Yeah.
Because that's his private property. So that's just like the ship. If you purchase the ship, and you do not do the relevant registration of the ship and get the documentation, because that is what allows you to drive the car on the road. When you have all of the documents from tax office.
Okay.
So it's the same way when you have all of your documentation for the ship, you can sail the high seas. If you don't, you can only sail the ship around your territorial waters. So see it there, the car and the ship, that is what I want you to remember. That is how the registration and all that is so important. It's just that you can drive the Porsche, but you can't go on the main road. The moment you decide to take the Porsche off of your private property and go onto the road is owned by parish council. And parish council says if you're going to drive on any of our thoroughfares, your car must be licensed and insured. Same way, the ship, the international community states if you're going to sail your ship outside of your territorial waters where you are, the link that you have, then you have to have it registered. So once again, we see a very important word. I haven't heard you mention it. I don't know if you know how important it is. The genuine link. There has to be a genuine link between you and the ownership of the ship.
I was just about to mention it. I
Good.
was just about to talk
I'm sorry for hijacking your show again.
I was just about to talk about the relationship between the two, documentation and registration. In my head, documentation allows for registration.
Yes.
Right? So I'm thinking then, as you use the analogy with the car, I'm thinking then that, okay, once I have the relevant documentation, that is the paperwork,
yes,
right? I have my license, I have my insurance, I have everything that I need to have from tax office. Then it is.
Well, no, but it's a ship, you're not going to tax office a car.
Yeah.
But with
right?
the ship, you're going to get it from other places. But yes.
So we have everything that we need to register our vessel. At that, we have the relevant documentation for our vessel. At that point, then we could say that, hey, this is a registered vessel, or this vessel is ready to be registered, because all the appropriate documentation is
and if the vessel is not registered, does not have any of that, it is now a stateless vessel.
Stateless vessel. Could you expand on a stateless vessel?
Sure. And it's very important. I want you to remember this one too. To the viewers, a stateless vessel means that you do not have the relevant documentation. You are not registered. You don't have no proof to show that you have a genuine link to anywhere.
Okay.
Now it is very hard to establish the genuine link, and the best way to establish a genuine link is by having documentary proof. So what you have in writing, so that document is what gives you the genuine link. Just like your passport. That's what allows you to get on an aircraft.
Okay.
You can have the money, but if you don't have a passport, you can't travel.
Can't travel.
The same way.
You can try travel still, but
well, you're gonna be a stowaway. That's a different podcast now. That's a stowaway. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Reid. So far, I hope you guys are learning. I hope you guys are really taking note of what is being discussed. It is very, very important. We're going to speed ahead a little.
Sure, that's good.
We're going to, since we just spoke about documentation and registration, we're going to know the flag.
Yes.
Right? And what about the flag? What why do we need the flag? Why do we need to? What is the relevance of the flag? Right?
The flag is its symbols. It's a symbol of where you are registered. So your ship is flagged. It's flagged a Jamaican ship. It's flagged a Panamanian ship. It's flagged a British ship. It's just the flag. It's just put on there to show, just like how you have your license plate. It's put on there to show where the connection, the genuine link is for this ship.
Goes back to the car. You made mention of the license plate a while ago. So
yes.
It is kind of like the flag is the license plate of the ship.
The flag, yes. It also has its own registration too. So though, let's not get that twisted. When I use that word, I use it very loosely. But the ship also has its own license plate, if you want to call it that. Because it has its own series, its own code.
Yeah.
Because it runs with the life of the ship. And when the ship dies, the code is retired with that ship.
So you're saying that no two ships have the same code?
No two ships will have it. Okay. It's different ones.
Alright, so you're saying then that the relevance of the flag is to show that, hey, I'm registered in this country.
Yes.
And I have sovereign right to do what I need to do in these waters.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So it announces to the world when they see that ship, oh, that is a Jamaican ship, that is a British ship, that is a Guyanese ship.
And
all
they
of that.
have approved, right? They have documentary evidence.
Excellent,
to
exactly.
say that, hey, I am.
Exactly. So from afar, the person will know it's a Jamaican ship, and they know if they try to assert jurisdiction, people have to bring forward their Jamaican documentation showing that they were registered in Jamaica.
Okay. Alright. Again, guys, I hope you are paying attention. This is a very, very, very enthralling podcast today. I have two more questions.
Yes.
Right? The first one is, when or at what point does the flag need to be hoisted? Is it that the flag needs to always be flowing while the vessel is at sea or in port? Is it a case where the flag just needs to be shown whenever somebody is trying to assert jurisdiction to say, hey, I am registered in this country or whatnot?
Well, the custom is that the flag is normally flown for the duration of the journey. What a lot of people notice, and people have asked me over the time, is why is it that sometimes they see two flags?
Okay.
Sometimes you see two flags, it's just to show when they're coming into another port. It's just a more sign of respect for that person's country. So you might see a flag, let's say a ship that is registered in Panama, flying the Panamanian flag, but when it reaches into Jamaica, you see the Jamaican flag being flown. It's just showing that they come with the warmest welcome. They come in peace, they come in, it's just almost like an old wife's myth tale.
So it's just a custom.
Just a custom, excellent, that's the word, a custom, yes. I respect your country, and I'm here upholding the laws of your country.
Okay. Alright, but then another thing I want to know, I think my viewers would like to know as well, where exactly does what flag go? Because you mentioned that there could be two flags on the ship at whenever they're going to a port. So I want to know what flag goes at the bow or what flag goes at the stern.
I'm not too sure which one goes where, I will be honest. But what I do know is that they tend to put them at the front of the ship, right on the boat, right there, for it to be seen.
Okay, alright, no problem. Final question, Mr. Reed.
Yes.
You have been an exceptional guest.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope your viewers feel the same way.
I hope they feel the same way as well. Very, very informative. I have learned quite a lot throughout the duration of this podcast.
Yes.
And I have come down now to my final question.
Yes.
My final question to you, Mr. Reed, is something that I think we have touched, but I want you to just go into detail a little bit more. It concerns the registration of a vessel. We already had established why it is necessary for a vessel to have documentation. So the final question now is, what are the functions of registering a vessel? Right? Why do we need to register the vessel? Could you just go in depth for us?
So why, you really want to know why do we need to register the vessel?
Yes, why is it necessary?
Literally, that question is almost a summary of everything we've discussed. Because why we need to register the vessel is so it can ply the seas. Once again, go back to the example, you as a ship owner, what is the main reason you buy the ship for?
For commercial purposes.
And you want commercial purposes, that means you want to make money.
Exactly.
So you're going to make sure that you register your vessel because you want it to ply the seas and make money.
Yeah.
So you're going to do everything properly. You're going to make sure you register the vessel, you carry it, and you get the relevant documentation. So you do all of that. Seaworthy, exactly. And they will do all the checks to make sure that your vessel is seaworthy. So everything will be checked out by the relevant parties before they issue the relevant documentation.
There's the word again, guys. There is the word again. The link between the genuine link.
The genuine link
between documentation and registration. It's very important. Very, very important. Continue, Mr.
Yes. So therefore, you want it to make money. It is a commercial business, as you say, and you are plying the seas because you have an item you'd like to trade. So therefore, you want your goods to reach the other destinations, and you want it to be that when you arrive in the next port of call, that your ship is not upheld for any breaches or anything. So you want to make sure that everything is on par. So what you're going to do, you make sure the ship is properly registered. It's upholding the laws laid down by the international community. So therefore, it can go to the various ports around the world, and when it goes to the ports around the world, it is not denied entry into the ports.
Okay, so basically you're saying that, in a nutshell, you're saying that the registration of a ship serves as its passport,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good. So that is my final question. I
Okay.
thank you so much
Yes,
for
so
coming.
remember social
Yeah, social
yes, we
distance,
don't have a
we can't-
choice anymore.
Alright,
For
so
now, that's what we have to be doing. But yes, it was a pleasure having
was
being here in
really,
your
really
studio.
good today.
And I
Really,
look
really
forward
good.
to another. I hope I'm not overstepping by asking for another meeting, because it's really good, and I hope that your viewers and your listeners are thoroughly enjoying this.
I truly hope so. Jermaine Reed, guys, lawyer, lecturer, and so many other things. A multi-potentialite here on the Students Digest. We'll see you next week. We're out.
Okay.